half in the bag.
Why? Doesn't have to be the full length every time. It could be shorter.
Hello and welcome to the first and last episode of the Nicolas Cage creepy new movie double feature.
Because you are the dark.
On this episode, we discuss Longlegs, from Oz Perkins, the co-star of Quigley.
And what about the really nice move you just made on the briefcase?
When dogs have to go, they go quick. And I hurt my knee, lifting my leg to pee. It's not easy being a dog.
Longlegs is a new film about a creepy, intimidating psychopath. And no, I'm not talking about Gary Busey. The film has been widely praised as the scariest horror film in decades and an absolute must-see. We also discuss Arcadian, which is another movie that exists.
That's not helping.
Well, we're talking about Arcadian first.
I assume we're going to talk about Arcadian first since no one wants to hear it and they're going to
Yeah.
have to wait until we get to Longlegs.
Don't try to skip our ad breaks.
Don't skip Arcadian. We're going to have a very detailed discussion of a movie that I didn't even know existed until like a week ago. Nobody knows about this thing.
No, fairly low-budget movie filmed in Ireland.
Oh, okay.
From a director who hasn't really done much.
Was it directed by, just out of my own curiosity, someone with like Parkinson's?
I had a feeling you wouldn't like it, and
It's not that I didn't. I thought it was spectacularly average. I thought it was fine.
listen,
But I want to know what you saw in it that I didn't. And I'm not just talking literally because I couldn't see what was happening half the time because the image was so dark.
there was some dark imagery. The camera work I'll discuss in a moment. There were some negative qualities to it, but overall, I really enjoyed it. And it has a high critical rating, but kind of like a 50% audience. So it's either like you're on the same side of the movie or you didn't like it. It's very polarizing, I guess. You either loved it or hated it. I don't know.
I'm kind of in the middle. I don't know.
Well, I'm not going to be hyperbolic and say it was the greatest movie I've ever seen, and blah 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 blah. But I might have just been in the mood for it. And I watched the trailer and I was like, okay, it looks kind of like a Quiet Place kind of movie.
That's the big point of comparison is Quiet Place. Yeah.
See, Nicolas Cage's two sons are living in some kind of farmhouse and there's monsters. I'm like, okay, but I kind of enjoyed the style of it, the kind of bare bones nature of it, and I was legitimately creeped out by many visuals and things that the monsters in the film did. The movie starts off with Nicolas Cage running through a city, and something's happening. Mm-hmm. And there's very little exposition to the backstory. Some of the characters do a little game where they kind of talk about the apocalypse in 10 words. And
They try and like guess what might have happened.
yeah, because
it's all kept really vague.
Yeah, the focus of the film are young adults, kids, I guess. Because Nicolas Cage is running through the city, and he either is running home, but or he just discovers two babies. It's never really explained.
Right.
Whether or not they're his children or someone else's, and he just decides to save them. So they end up on a farmhouse. It's like, 15 years later, 16 years later. He has two like adolescent sons who are on the cusp of puberty or have just entered it. One is the kid from It.
Yeah.
And some other kid.
He's reached that gangly, awkward stage.
Yeah.
He's good in this, though. Everyone's good in it. All the performances are good.
Bad haircuts.
Bad hair. I mean, it's post-apocalypse. They're probably cutting their own hair. That's fine.
That's the thing. It's like someone had a razor and they just like,
exactly.
just went around, and there's like missed spots where they went too close and too long, and that was a little nice touch.
Well, that's the big center point of the whole movie is the relationship between those two brothers. They have very different personalities. And yeah, It Kid is very like logical. He's trying to pay attention to like patterns from the creatures, like how often they smack on the door to try and get in, stuff like that. And then the other brother reacts more emotionally to things. So that's kind of the conflict of the whole movie.
Yes, they're different personality types and following the rules. When the one kid, he doesn't really care too much about monsters because he's in love.
Yes.
Down at the neighbor's farm, there's a different house and there's a young lady. And
It's very, and then that's like the other farm. They have their own sort of system in place. They don't want a lot of outsiders. It's very like Romero-esque.
Yeah.
As far as like part of the threat being that people just can't get along. So
Right.
I like that stuff about it.
it kind of reminded me of like it almost like regressed to like Life on the Prairie kind of thing. Where
Yeah.
the kids were just like, no one sees like a wooden rocking horse, he doesn't know what it is because they were from babies, so they really didn't have a lot of knowledge of stuff. And there's no technology, there's no anything. It's very simple. And the monsters, there's some very creepy moments with the monsters, and they move in such a uniquely odd way that was, I found, oddly disturbing. Even though it's a lower budgeted movie and they stood out as kind of CG-ish.
A little bit. They tried to film around it. They did what they could to kind of conceal the lower budget. But yeah, they're very unnerving.
There's
movements. They're
when he's in the cave and it's peeking out from the darkness.
Yeah.
Or the hand coming through the door with the fingernail that comes
that was
out.
the shot that really got me, because
Weird stuff.
the whole idea is that they have to you have to be in before dark. They only come out at dark.
Yeah.
The light, I guess, hurts them or something.
They're like werewolf aliens.
Sure, yeah.
We don't know.
But yeah, so the one son, the it kid, is stuck at home. His dad had to go out after dark to find the other son. It's a whole thing. So he's stuck at home and you think he's sleeping, and then you see that hand come in, the fingernail grows longer and longer. And yeah, that was genuinely creepy because it was a nice flat wide shot. The camera wasn't doing this.
But you're like, yeah. You're like, what am I looking at?
Yeah,
And same with,
exactly.
like because I don't know, these things either reproduce or come from like insects, or insects are attracted to them. There's a moment where bugs fly out. I think they see like eggs or some kind of like burrowing system. I don't know, like Alien almost. You know, like
Yeah.
an Alien when the people are like stuck on the walls and stuff, and there's that weird like disgusting residue that's left by like the queen alien as she
Yeah.
like moves around. It's something like that where it's something, and you're like, what is that? It's so foreign, and same with the movements, like when the alien's doing its like mouth clapping thing.
Head clacking. Yeah, that was
Yeah.
the unnerving part to me, is like it almost like it catches you off guard, and like
Right.
you wouldn't know what to do if you saw that.
Yeah, and then a certain character dies in a certain way that I'm like, just what? And that kind of like primal grossness, your lizard brain kind of turns on. You're just like, what? and as opposed to like, you know, the typical like teeth and jumps at you, or alien eggs, and you see the eggs, and it's like kind of like oversimplifies it or makes it just kind of cliched. This took some leaps. It isn't a groundbreaking film. It's not going to be remembered in history as
Although they do literally break the ground.
yeah. Oh, it is a groundbreaking.
It is a groundbreaking film.
Yeah, sorry. But yeah, it's literally a groundbreaking film. But it did some weird and different things with alien or with creatures that I haven't seen before. But I was not a fan of the method of shooting.
I had a real hard time. That's, I think, what kept me so distant from the movie, was the style to me felt at odds with the actual content. Like this is a movie that like that shot with the hand coming in, where it's just flat, locked off. Where you're like, what am I looking at? Like, that's creepy.
Yeah.
Same with, we're going to talk about Longlegs. Lots of like flat shots where something moves in the distance. Things like that, I think, would have benefited this movie, and maybe it's a part of the low budget to conceal some of the effects work, but it's not just handheld. It's like needlessly shaky. It was making me legitimately nauseous in parts. Right from the opening, you see whenever a character is running, the cameraman is running with them, and I'm like, ah!
Yeah, it might be like either the inexperience of the director, because that to me always comes off as like, I don't know, composition is so important, and I don't know, it's like a lot of people don't even notice certain things, but editing and composition.
Even if you aren't like aware of it while you're watching it, if you're like oblivious to the technical aspects of filmmaking, it has a psychological effect on you.
Yeah.
Which we'll also go into talking about Longlegs.
Yeah, framing is super important, and so is editing. Like, I don't know, I guess I always think of that scene from *Inglourious Bastards* on the farm in the beginning with
Oh yeah.
what's his face?
Christoph Waltz.
Christoph Waltz, and Tarantino does that a lot, where he's like, someone is giving this long talk, and it's very ominous and menacing, and he doesn't cut back to the person like listening, reacting. It's just like you're like, what are they thinking? What are they, And it builds tension and claustrophobia. The camera's like slowly moving in, and there's ways to like achieve certain things, and this style was like police detective movie, cops on the street walking around chasing after a suspect, like run and gun. We have to film this a certain way, and when I think of like this isolated farmhouse kind of thing, it's like just
you want some
smoother.
lockdown shots because everybody's like walking on eggshells.
Yeah.
You need a visual style that matches that. I think it's just like shorthand for chaotic. Like Like especially the part when the kid falls in the cave and then his dad has to come rescue him. All that stuff was so dark. It was shaky and dark, and there were parts where I literally didn't know what I was looking at.
Yeah,
that took me out.
That particular scene was more so effective because I like when I'm like not shown what's happening to a certain extent, where it's a little confusing, and it makes you feel like you're there with the character, like confused and scared. And but then there's scenes where it's like they're, I don't know, outside in the farm and it's daylight and it's constantly like that. Like, so stop that. Have the scary parts play out in shaky cam if you need to cover up your effects or create a mood.
Well, that's another thing. You have these nice lockdown shots, and then the monsters show up, and then you break out the handholds, something like that.
Yeah.
But it all kind of has that energy through the whole movie.
Yeah.
It makes them all kind of fall flat.
Right. But it was. I think it was a pleasant surprise. Maybe because the bar was low for me. I was like, oh, Arcadian, what? Nicolas Cage.
I was gonna say maybe your brain is rotted from watching stuff like Night Swim and Imaginary.
It's possible. No, I think the standouts were, some nice, like, I don't know, young adult coming of age stuff, some good character stuff.
It was nice to see a movie that's about like two brothers and the relationship between.
Yeah.
You never really see that. Like something like A Quiet Place, it's about the whole family.
Right.
There's almost always in movies now you have to have the strong female lead.
Yeah.
Which obviously nothing against that, but in a movie like this where it's like, whoa, this is about the relationship between two brothers and they're raised by their father. They have no female perspective in their life, and that helps shape them too.
Yeah.
I really like that dinner scene.
Are we not men?
Where the dad's like, we are men, and he stabs the fork into the table. The one brother stabs the fork into the table, and then the more kind of thoughtful, concerned brother tries, and it doesn't stab into the table, and it falls over.
Are we not men?
Little character moments like that kind of say a lot, just visually. Without spoiling the ending, it seems like a little nod to Critters 2.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
That was kind of a pleasant surprise. I wasn't expecting something like that from this movie.
I think that was their attempt at, I forgot about that. Some gimmicky stuff that these things do that's just completely inhuman and strange to the point of either being alien or something, and you're just like, ew.
Yeah.
Ew, gross, or what the fuck am I looking at? That kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that element of it.
I will say, since this is the Nicolas Cage double feature spectacular, I will say it's been nice to see that we as a society have moved past the memification of Nicolas Cage. Because it was like 10, 12 years ago, he was just a big joke because of, not the bees, and people were making like memes of him. And I remember there was a whole bit on Community, the show Community, where they had a class dedicated to trying to figure out if Nicolas Cage was a good or bad actor. Because he can be over the top, but when he's over the top, he's like entertaining and engaging and interesting because he makes just weird choices as an actor.
I never misspelled anything! Not once, not one time! I'm a vampire! I'm a vampire! I'm a vampire! I'm a vampire!
So that's our review of Arcadian Redbox original.
It's pretty okay.
Pretty.
If you can get past the shaky cam, which for me was tough. Sharp contrast to the visual style of Longlegs.
Don't move.
Is it scary being an FBI agent?
Coletta was left with the bodies.
Longlegs was the best episode of Criminal Minds I've ever seen.
I've never seen a single episode of Criminal Minds, so I can't attest to the quality of that show. But no, I'm so glad that I went into this not knowing anything about it. All the marketing has just been, like the trailers and stuff have just been selling it completely on mood and atmosphere and not really telling anything about the story. You kind of get, okay, serial killer thing, maybe some Silence of the Lambs, female FBI agent. And that's kind of all you got. It's going to be a victim, though, of its early word of mouth, because I feel like I've been hearing about this movie for months now. It feels like everybody already saw it before it even came out. And it's just scariest movie in the last decade, scariest movie you'll ever see. And like every time that happens, then you get that initial wave of backlash. Be like, that wasn't scary. It happened with like Hereditary, way back when it happened with Blair Witch. That's like the most extreme example.
Well, even if it wasn't, I'm not gonna play with that either.
And it's all because of me that we're here now, hungry and cold and hunted.
Where everyone felt cheated. It's just people running around the woods.
And talk about shaky cam nausea.
Talk about nauseous camera work, but yeah. So this is gonna end up being the victim of that. Just go into it expecting a solid, creepy crime movie, and then be pleasantly surprised by all the weird little shit that's in it that I wasn't expecting.
Do you still say your prayers? Never once?
Be nice with me. But you didn't.
Yeah, it took some strange turns, but very much a movie about an unsub who was being profiled by the FBI, and then they discover things at the end, and then there's a twist, and then it concludes. The plot was, not the best part. It was atmospheric and moody and well shot.
Great sense of like pacing and that constant dread. I was thinking of like Exorcist 3, just that like constant kind of droning dread.
There's weird sounds, and that plays in with the plot, which we'll get to after we say spoilers. But yeah, there's some brain stuff going on in the background and the soundtrack and things going on. I was looming dread. It's nice wide angle lenses, people moving forward and backwards, and
oh yeah, all the visuals. There's that part because it's very. What I didn't know going into it was that it was going to be so heavily like religious. It's religious horror basically. Mixed with like I guess Seven's kind of religious too, because it's obviously about the seven deadly
meets
sins.
Silence of the Lambs meets Criminal Minds meets Zodiac a little.
Definitely Zodiac. Yeah, it's kind of a mixture of a bunch of things with a little bit more supernatural than I was expecting.
Yes.
Which kept it from getting maybe a little too dry. But yeah, with the visuals, like I said, the religious stuff. There's the part. Maika Monroe's on the phone with her mom. I think she's at the police station. She's in some like public building.
Yeah, on a payphone.
And there's that, on a payphone, because it's in the 90s, and there's that big wide shot, and her mom's always asking her, like, did you say your prayers today? Like, she's super religious. And that wide shot, there's the stairway next to her going up, and there's more of like a golden light shining down from the stairs, but then you see the doors and the windows to outside, and it's more of like a orangish or a reddish light coming in from out there. Heaven and hell, like little touches like that.
It was made with care.
Yeah.
Unlike I don't want to say Arcadian wasn't made with care, but it was probably shot quicker.
A little more slapdash because it's low budget. Yeah.
But this was like, there's probably, if you go back and watch it, there's probably lots of little things in the frame, because I kept seeing like weird shapes, and her and another FBI agent, the guy she's working with, her boss, I guess, because she's like a junior FBI agent. So they go into this barn, and there's the cameras moving beautifully, and they come into the barn, and they got their flashlights on, but then the camera moves past them into this doorway, the entrance to the barn, and you see in the distance, and it's just like lingering.
Yeah, lots of lingering shots.
And you're like, you get that weird feeling like they're being watched, and they could have been, we don't know. But you're like, am I looking for somebody back there? And then it's like, whoa, this is going on really long. They're being watched, and then it cuts away. And so there's lots of craftsmanship in this. Oz Perkins certainly knows how to direct a film.
How did you do that?
I hope you have what it takes to solve this problem.
I gotta go.
and he elevated a Criminal Minds script because that's kind of, to me, the weakest part. It's very much a polished up, kind of like, I don't know, not cliched story, but sort of predictable plot. It didn't get too crazy, but
I predicted there. Should we just get into spoilers?
well, I mean, all we could really praise at this point is the visual style, the directing, the acting, the tone, all of the juicy, delicious ingredients that make for a wonderful film, without talking about the most important part of the plot. So yeah, I suppose so.
All right, we're gonna get into spoilers. Check it out.
Check it out.
Just check it out.
What if the twist of the movie was that the real person behind the killings was Dr. Steve Brule?
Yeah.
Guess who? You still can't guess?
We're talking about Satan.
I'm gonna tell you about Hail Satan, dang dangus. That'd be amazing if the whole movie was a prank. John C. Reilly comes out at the end, the terrorists flying in the breeze. Get in the barn, dang dingus.
I saw a beast rise up out of the sea.
What's going on? Oh, thank goodness, there's a little boy.
On each head was written a blasphemous name.
What aren't you telling me? I don't know. What's come on?
Anyways, that's enough silliness. Yeah, have you waded through our silliness? That's another thing before we get to the spoiler part. The most amazing thing happened in this that is tied to our most recent, or someone's most recent episode of Wheel of the Worst. You know,
Yes,
that
yes.
new channel on YouTube we watch. Mm-hmm. They have a new episode of Wheel of the Worst, and something happens.
It's not out yet. We know about it.
We know about it. We've seen the early cut, but something amazing happens at the end, and something in this is directly related to that, to where we both laughed.
Yes. So when you see that Wheel of the Worst, which will come out after this, know that we shot that before we saw this movie. Mm-hmm. So it is just a coincidence. It's a cosmic coincidence.
It's a random chance.
There's a mastermind behind it,
Yes,
actually.
you'll see what we're talking about when you watch both this product, the Longlegs product, and Wheel of the Worst.
Yes.
But, okay, have you waited long enough to decide if you're going to watch Longlegs? Because we're going to tell about the plot. Anyways, go.
Well, that's the aspect of it that surprised me, was the whole satanic angle. I didn't know it was going to go in that direction. I didn't know there was going to be... everything's so, like, there's a supernatural element, but it's so, vague and like ethereal and not like super over the top. Everything's like vague and kind of creepy and not like so specific.
Well, it's
and
not
like the details of how it all works, which I liked.
Yes, it's so weird, and it rides the line between it could be actually supernatural or it could be interpretation.
Well, that's another, the dolls, that's another thing where it's like, oh, this is a Satanist movie, it's a creepy doll movie, it's a supernatural movie, and it's a serial, like all these things that feel like they would be too many different elements, but they're all like so thinly spread out that it works.
I mean, the only like indication of actual like real paranormal or supernatural would be like when you physically see that black smoke, but that could be just interpretation. And then the guy at the morgue has the silver ball bearing that's inside the brains, inside the skull of dolls that are what is it called? My twin. The My Twin dolls.
Yeah.
He puts like a piece of metal on it, and it kind of, you hear like radio waves coming through. So there could, and Nicolas Cage is in the sort of like a junk store where the girl calls her dad.
Yeah.
Those are the witnesses that help them track down because they're like, we have a picture of him. She's like, that creepy guy's back. And there were a bunch of camera lenses and all sorts of like weird stuff. It was like Radio Shack, like a redneck Radio Shack or something. So there's a some sort of real world explanation, because she has abilities, sensing abilities that you could either interpret as supernatural or something else going on.
I have a feeling this is a movie that's going to benefit from rewatches because there's so many little details. And I'm not like super versed on religion, but I'm assuming there's something behind like the dates, like the ages of the girls that get killed are 9. Their birthdays are always on the 13th. 14th. So there's probably more to stuff like that I would need to read
she discusses
into,
his algorithm and she prints out the thing and it's like a pattern.
Yeah.
It forms this sign of the devil, some kind of weird symbol.
Right. But there's also the silver ball. Yeah, you hear like static waves. And I noticed every time she was on the phone with her mom, you would also hear those noises.
Staticky. And they come in and out of the film. But the coroner guy says, he's like, when I touched the ball with this metal thing, and he said, I started to immediately think about my ex-wife, and I haven't thought about her in years. And he makes this kind of face like, because that's the point, is the ball kind of controls your mind and turns you into a murderous psychopath. Which, a little silly, borderline silly, but presented
depends on how it's executed
in the most artistically executable way possible, which of course made it work, because Oz Perkins could make a creepy horror film. So I don't know.
No, I love that when you could take things that are just when you're describing them sound kind of silly, but I mean even the plot of like Seven sounds like a corny '90s action movie if you really explain it, but it's presented.
He's killing everybody based on the 7 deadly sins.
Yeah, it sounds so goofy, but then when you see the movie, like it's really unsettling.
We should start a podcast called "In the Hands of Another Filmmaker." ... Right? Where you take a classic movie like Seven or even Longlegs, and say, what would Brett Ratner make out of this, or somebody else, and it's just some completely different visual style, some different directing. That where, like I said, Criminal Minds, like a show like that, where it's just like a procedural show. There's a serial killer, they interview people. There's your red herring. You think that's going to be it. No, it's not. And then it turns out, then at the end they either arrest or kill the unsub.
I just wanted to see him again.
If you strip everything away, and these are your very basic story beats.
Yeah.
Because when the mom was calling on the phone, I'm like, she's got something to do with this.
Right.
She's got something to do with this.
That was the one thing that was...
There's got to be someone helping him.
It's like, well, we only have 4 characters in this movie.
Who else is in the movie?
Yeah, that was the one
the
thing
guy
that was
works down at 7-Eleven? Is it the little girl? It can't be the FBI agent. That would be too corny. And then like Nicolas Cage is like... I don't know, they never really got into his backstory. He's talking about like birthdays and little girls and dolls, and so I'm like, okay, did he go nuts after his own daughter was killed on her birthday? And then it's like, I'm like, don't do that movie. And then it goes like some weird ass place.
Well, yeah, and there's also something about like the cycle of violence, like perpetuating, almost like The Ring, where it's like you have to pass it off to other people.
Yeah.
So there's stuff like that. How it's like at the end of the movie, she technically defeats Longlegs, but not really, because she and this little girl are going to be stuck with this trauma forever, and there might be a part of Longlegs in her. The Nicolas Cage character says that at one point. There'll always be pieces of me out there.
Right.
He's like the Joker or something.
Yeah.
And his performance, I can see it maybe being too much for some people, bordering on comedic. Kind of like the creatures in Arcadia, though, where it's like they're so unnatural and weird that it's unsettling, even though you could view it in a way that makes it seem more comedic.
I think he's had plastic surgery maybe to look like a doll.
That's maybe.
His own nose breaks apart at the end, but he has a weird puffy face, and he's painted it like a doll, like white with powder, and but he clearly used to love heavy metal music. I don't know if that's what got him into Satanism, but he sings.
Yeah, he could be,
like
because
a-
this is like 90s, and there's no real in-world, like in the movie, there's no real explanation as to why it's the 90s. But it could be that he was younger during the height of the like Satanic Panic era. Maybe that's what got him into it. Satanism, I don't know.
Maybe, yeah, because he sings like a hair metal band. It's
Yeah.
he's like, "Eh," but he says such weird, disturbing things, and it's almost like that kind of like that squint kind of thing you do, like where you're just like if you forget it's Nicolas Cage, it's kind of creepy, but then once you kind of start to remember that it's him, then you kind of go, oh, now it feels like a skit or something, and where they probably should have cast someone who's unknown in that role.
You know who would have been good in that part? As almost like a comeback vehicle would be like a Crispin Glover. Oh man, he would have nailed this part.
Yeah. There's a lot of good choices.
Yeah. I thought Nicolas Cage was good though, but yeah, I see what you mean.
Yeah.
You can maybe pull you out because you know it's Nicolas Cage, and what he's doing is out of context of the movie. If you were to look at clips of it, it would probably seem kind of silly.
Just shake yourself dry.
I think when you say like people, this is the scariest movie you'll ever see, you'll run out of the theater throwing up, and
You'll shit your pants, and then your pants will shit themselves.
people are fainting in the aisles. That sort of nonsense.
It's not that kind of movie. It's just
No.
like constant dread, which is good.
Yeah, younger people will get bored during it, I think. And I always knock on the younger folk, but maybe not all of them. I'm just saying, like, you know, I was half expecting when the movie ended, someone just to go, oh, this fucking sucked, you know, because it does end on a good note, but I thought it was going to end earlier before.
I was worried it was going to end earlier, and then it'd be like, oh, it's one of those anti-ending endings. But no, I think it pays off in a satisfying way that is also creepy, because it shows that this evil will just continue. It just lives. This whole movie's just about like evil. Again, like Exorcist 3, I thought that worked really well.
But yeah, good movie. Again, I would have loved to have watched this in my home.
This is, if you have a nice theater where people are respectful and quiet, and the chairs don't make fart noises every time you move, because it's the quietest movie you've ever seen.
Yeah, the people in our theater were respectful and quiet. I had no problems with the people. It's just the movie was very quiet.
In this case, yeah.
The fucking seats. I hate those big, poofy Tootsie Roll chairs.
Yeah.
And mine was like, if I moved like an inch, it goes.
It was like full-blown fart sound.
It was for a long time, so I had to like remain. And I'm a very antsy person. I'm always moving, and I had to just like remain completely still, or else if I moved just a bit, and it like echoed throughout the whole theater, and everybody heard it.
And every scene is so quiet. It's just like Macon Monroe on the phone, and it's dead silence. And
Yeah. No, our experience wasn't unpleasant. It was just
people-wise, it wasn't too bad.
it's fine. It was a morning. You know, who goes to see Longlegs in the morning?
That is another thing that this sort of benefited from, is seeing it at night, and a nice, dark, creepy, spooky, stormy night watching this movie.
Oh, at home.
Sure, at home.
Oh, I thought you meant like at night in a theater.
No.
See, this is going to be a very bad theatrical experience for a lot of people, because it's a very quiet movie, and it's a very slow movie, and it's very dull in the middle.
Why doesn't it have to be the full length every time? Could be shorter.
It does benefit though from that theater sound.
Yeah.
Like all the little ambient noises and weird sound effects throughout it that are kind of going all over the place. You'll miss some of that at home unless you have a nice surround sound set up.
Right. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Sound was important in this. It was helping to create that tone and lots of clues.
And it was nice on such a large screen, because like you mentioned, the whole movie, like lots of wide shots where it's like, it makes you feel like a voyeur almost, or like, and it gets you like scanning around the frame. The first time she calls her mom, there's this shot. She's kind of dead center in the frame, but lots of wide lenses.
Oh.
And there's the doorway behind her to like the kitchen, and I kept going to that doorway. I was like, is someone gonna walk back there? They never did, but there was that tension because you were just waiting for it.
Oh yeah. That was a creepy part.
Yeah.
When he comes in her house and stuff.
Creepy without before anything creepy even happens. Just by the framing, just by the tone of it.
Anticipatory framing.
Yeah.
Because like with the shot through the barn or over her shoulder, I was looking too, because the room she was in was like She has like a log cabin in the woods. It was like a rustic-y house. It was very brown, and then the kitchen had like a sort of bluish tint, so it popped out. And it was just like framed behind her, so she can't see. And so you're sitting there with anticipation, expecting. And that goes back to Arcadian when I'm talking about like it's important framing, purposeful framing, blocking, setting the stage and all that. And Arcadian, quick, just film the whole conversation. I don't know how to block it. I don't know how to take my time, like setting up all these shots and like, oh, this shot where the kid is saying this to a different character is representing this, so let's put this person in this part of the frame so that you can subtly, subconsciously get this impression that this, no, we don't have time for that. Just film, just get it all. So half of our budget's going towards the CGI work on the monsters. Just get it all shot in the can, and we'll fix it later. This was not that. Polar opposite movies, both enjoyable. One is clearly done with a higher level of craftsmanship and skill. The other took some interesting chances and some new angles on monsters that I enjoyed, but lacked in the technical and directing areas. And both had Nicolas Cage.
Don't be negative.
Check it out. Dun, dun, dun.
See, this is the only use of AI that I will tolerate if somebody uses AI to replace Nicolas Cage in this movie with Steve Brule.
It's just a regular boat.
I have that weird, like, 3D morphing effect. Hey, dingus.
Give them kids the doll, you dingus. Hail Satan, dingus.
Put a giant ball bearing in its head. Tells your daddy to make your mommy dead.
Hail Certain.
Hail Satan. Hail Satin.
If you don't worship Genghis, you have to worship Satan.
Oh, I don't think they'd approve of your hurried attitude.
That was a dumb thing to say.